Hello dear students. So in continuation with the last video wherein I was explaining about the principle of fluorescence, we'll get into the instrumentation of fluorescence spectrophotometer. So it's also can be called as fluorimeter. Here it's just look like how when UV visible spectrophotometer will be. That will be an xenon lamp, or you can say it's a source of light. Usually ultraviolet radiation is going to be the incident radiation which is going to be allowed to fall onto the sample, and so therefore in order to select a particular wavelength we are going to have the monochromator followed by the source of the lamp, and these monochromators includes prism, graters, and then there will be a slit through which the monochromating the plane the what you call it as the incident light of a particular wavelength is going to be allowed to pass through and fall onto the sample. Before it gets fall onto the sample, there will be a half mirror which is going to be allowing the which is going to have an angle of 90 degree 45 degree, and which is going to be rotating continuously, and it's going to allow the light to pass simultaneously, means fall simultaneously on with a very small short of time gap onto the sample as well as a reference content. And there will be a reference detect means so that the incident radiation can directly fall onto a reference detector, and also the radiation is going to be allowed the light is going to be allowed to fall onto the sample. Sample is usually placed into a cuvette, and generally these particular cuvettes, since it's going to be ultraviolet radiations, automatically it is generally made up of quartz or silica. Then from that particular sample holder, then again the light is going to get emitted. So here generally the light which is get emitted at an angle of 90 degree or 45 degree if the position of the cuvette is as you can see it, if it is going to be like this, so that from the same side if we are actually going to be measuring the fluorescent radiation, then it is going to be 45, or else it will be 90 degree position. So there will be a grater, so which is going to be again selects the particular wavelength of light which is going to get fluoresced by the sample, and then from followed by the grating again there will be a detector, usually a photo multiplier tube which is for amplifying the signal, and then followed by a detector. And here whatever the reference detector is there, it will detect the incident radiation, the wavelength of it, and there will be the sample detector which is going to detect the fluorescence radiation, and together the information will be sent to the system means through a recorder, so wherein the analyzing the results which are going to be obtained by the instrument is going to be done. Even we can able to even measure the emission, okay, as well as how much of light is being means what is the incident radiation, what is the emission, we are going to analyze it. So this is what same thing, sample compartment, usually it can be placed in an angle or directly it can be placed. So based on that we are going for either 45 degree or 180 degree 90 degree. So there will be temperature control is going to be also used, which is going to be jacketing the sample holders. Why? Because for accurate work of the emission intensity of a fluorophore, so it requires temperature, because or else the temperature will have profound effect on the fluorescence. And ultraviolet radiation, some of the sample and are the what you call it as the medium in which the sample is present, if they have the capacity of absorbing the ultraviolet radiation, they can increase the temperature of the system, so which can affect the absorption the fluorescence pattern of the particular sample. That's why usually temperature controllers are going to be used, and photomultiplier tubes which are usually red sensitives are going to be used here. and this is how it looks in terms of the machine, the spectrophotometer. If you come to the application of the spectrophotometer, the fluorescence spectrophotometer, so there are mainly many and highly varied applications are there. So here people are going to be able to measure the effect of pH, solvent composition, and polarization of the fluorescence. Even sometimes people are going to use polarized plain polarized incident radiation and look for what kind of polarization will be of the fluorescent material. So the comparative studies are being done by using the polarization also of the fluorescence as well as incident radiation, and measuring the fluorescence lifetime give an idea about the rotation correlation coefficient, and thus it can also give us an idea about the size of the particle. So non-fluorescent compounds can be made to fluoresce by adding the fluorescent probes into them, so it called as eccentric fluorescence. And here with the fluorescence we can get excitation spectrum as well as emission spectrum. So intrinsic fluorescence is going to be found in case of proteins. So applications wise people are using this particular method in order to study the protein folding. As we have come to know that there will be tryptophan, phenylalanine, tyrosine. These amino acids can give rise to fluorescence, and their fluorescence is going to get affected by the presence of different environmental conditions like the different solvents. Particularly this tryptophan is found to be plays a very important role, wherein it changes its fluorescence pattern. So based on the whether there was solvent in terms of polar solvents are there or apolar solvents are there. So this particular behavior will help us the existence of the tryptophan on the surface or inside the protein, so we can understand protein whether it is being folded or not. And even it is often used in conjunction with the CD 222 nanometer spectrum as a means of detecting the equilibrium folding intermediates. So this is a kind of applications which is there for fluorescence spectrophotometry pertaining to the pertaining to the protein folding. So now we will get into the other applications. There are a number of empirical rules which are going to be in play, means interpreting the protein folding. So that as I told you, the existence and movement of the intrinsic fluorescent molecule from the environment, from an higher polar environment into less polar environment, will be shifting in the lambda max to a shorter wavelength, and the intensity of lambda max increases. So there are a number of these aspects which are people consider in study of the folding. Extrinsic fluorescence, an external fluorophore it can be introduced into the system by chemical coupling reactions or by non-covalent binding. So thereby an fluorescence can be induced into a molecule which is not actually fluoresce by itself. There are three criteria are going to be met by the fluorophore in order to use it. It must not affect the mechanistic property of the system which is being investigated, and the fluorescence emission needs to be sensitive to the environmental condition in order to enable us to monitor the molecular event which is taking place within the particular medium or the system. And the fluorophore must be tightly bound to the unique location. So why unique location? For example, if we are studying about the protein and particularly let us say enzymes, and if you want to study the enzyme substrate interactions, so we want this fluorescent molecule to be very close to the active site of the enzyme. So this is what the binding site or the unique location which we are looking for, the presence of the fluorophore, so that whenever a substrate interaction takes place, the changes within the active site of the enzyme can be able to be monitored, as that creates a change in environment for that particular fluorophore. So people are using the fluorescence for binding studies. For example, glutathione S transferase has extensive binding property, so which may help in explaining why they are the most abundant cytosolic proteins in rats, human livers. So they are able to bind with foreign compounds such as drugs and dyes, and even a range of naturally occurring hydrophobic ligands. The most abundant GST possesses a small number of tryptophan residues on the surface, which acts as intrinsic fluorescent molecules, and binding interactions conveniently followed by the measuring fluorescence quenching of these tryptophan amino acids. So that can be very helpful in understanding the interactions of the binding studies or binding interactions of two different molecules or two GST with other proteins or drugs and other molecules. So which can be plotted as a fluorescent intensity against the ligand concentration. As a double reciprocal plot, we can get the and good idea, that is Kd, the dissociation constant for the protein and the ligand. So other kind of applications, like in case of single molecule, fluorescence is so sensitive method, we can able to detect the molecules in terms of quantity. So it is very much easy to detect quantification. So people are using it as in case of single Tweezer assays. So you can see here one in case of when the fluorescence is going to take place. So we can able to measure the change in the spinning, and here we can able to measure the movement, and even activity of RNA polymerase, even you can say DNA polymerase, or even what you can say here, you can make out the interaction of the binding of the protein streptavidin with other DNA and other substances. So these are all studies with single molecule we can do. Cellular methods, people are using GFP fusion, means with the protein they are producing the proteins with GFP fusion and analyzing how exactly these proteins are going to be behaving, where they are going to use the fluorescence phenomenon as a principle, but method will be fluorescent fluorescent microscopy. If you come to the extrinsic fluorescence, as I earlier told you, the molecules without their fluorescence by itself, they are being used. There are from fluorophores, few other examples. FRET, we discussed already about the FRET partially. So fluorescence resonance energy transfer, first described by Foster. FRET is R by 1 by R naught. So importance of FRET, effect is particularly suitable for biological applications, because here measurements is done between 10 to 100 angstroms in order of dimensions of biological macromolecules, and there will be changes of FRET readings based on the physiological conditions or the environment as it changes. FRET applications in DNA sequencing and investigation of molecular mechanism. Big days are the widely used application for FRET fluorophores since 1997. So these fluorophores are generally used as chain termination markers, and in many instances FRET allows monitoring of conformational changes also. So this is one kind of this is the big dye people are used, and there are other methods like FRAP, fluorescent recovery after photo bleaching, which you people have studied in case of membrane proteins. So these are all few of the applications of fluorescent fluorescence, and some of them of fluorescent spectrophotometry. Thank you. I'll stop here. We'll do with other spectrophotometric methods in the next video.